Hi, this is Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson.
What's up, everybody? I'm Matt Leinart, 2004 Heisman Trophy winner.
Hey, I'm Zane Gonzalez.
Hi, I'm Matt Barry from ESPN. You're getting ready to watch one of the best college football podcasts ever. It's the Harris Highlight Show.
You're watching the Harris Highlight Show.
And you're watching the Harris Highlight Show.
And you're listening to the Harris Highlight Show. Enjoy it.
Na 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 na.
Coming to you live from Monrovia, California. This is the Harris Highlight Show. Joining me this week is our college football analyst, Josh Schaefer, our college football expert, Lyle Goldstein, our executive producer, Brady Klein. I'm your host for the evening, Blake Harris. Boys, this is going to be a fun one because 45 minutes ago, they dropped the first college football playoff rankings of the season. We're already at that point. It still doesn't feel like we're at the halfway point, but we're at the playoff time for college football. So, guys, really quickly before we get into it, how's everyone's Tuesday night going?
Oh, Blake, it's going fantastic. Thank you so much for asking. How is your Tuesday night going?
Oh, it's going fantastic. It's going a lot better than BYU fans' Tuesday night, that's for certain.
Or ASU fans, for that matter.
That's also true.
Yeah.
Doing well. I'm always doing great, like Blake said last week. Brady was like, Blake, we forgot to go to Lyle, and then Blake's like, Lyle's always doing well.
Yeah.
I'm doing well.
Doing well. Doing quite
all right, boys. Well, I guess let's
quite all right. Thank you, Blake.
Let's not waste any time with this. Again, everyone, if you're new to the show, welcome. This is the Harris Highlights Show. You can follow us on Twitter at the HH Show. But any important information, that's going to be in the description of this video because, guys, it's time to talk some playoff rankings. The first playoff rankings are here. We got them, and there is a lot to get to. So, Brady, I think he's right now working to get that first graphic up because we're pretty much going to do kind of like what the committee did. We're not going to go from 21 or 25 all the way back because we'll get to that later in the show. That's not as important. What's important is talking about these top teams, talking about the top 6, talking about the top 10. There are pretty much no rules. We're not going to follow any guidelines in regards to this. So pretty much we're going to have the rankings up and we're kind of just going to go off one another, talk about what we want to talk about. Again, we're going to start at the top, go all the way to the bottom. And yeah, interact with us, guys, in the live chat. Let us know what you guys think on these rankings, whatever team we're talking about, whatever, team, any of this. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you guys have a certain, question or a certain topic in regards to the college football playoff rankings you'd like to hear our opinion on, you guys can donate to the super chat. It could be $1, it could be $2, however much you'd like. If you want to hear our thoughts on like Coastal Carolina, are they too high, too low? If we were on the playoff committee, what would our top 4, what would our top 6 be? Any questions you guys have in regards to that, you guys can go over to the super chat. You guys can donate, and we're going to put your question up. We're going to answer it. This is pretty much, for the most part, just going to be a playoff rankings show. We're going to talk about some of the games from this past weekend that's going to be involved with these rankings. We're going to be having more of a Q&A, and of course, our Uni Watch and some of our updated Heisman rankings. But for the most part, this is going to be a playoff-driven show. A lot to get to because, we got a few weeks left of the college football season. This is arguably the most important week we've seen so far in college football because these rankings matter. Unfortunately, the AP poll and the coaches poll, those two don't matter. This is the one that counts. We get to see what the playoff committee's thinking. So, Brady, if you're able to throw up the graphic of the top 6, which, by the way, if you guys haven't seen the rankings yet, and this is how you're being introduced to them, fantastic. What?
You said Brady, and Brady was like,
right.
looking off screen.
No. I've got a second monitor just off screen this way that has all of the graphics on it. I was making sure I have it in the right order. Blake, first you want to go with the top 6 first?
The top 6 one.
All right, here we go.
Again, if you haven't seen these yet, here you go.
Welcome to the Harris Highlight Show.
These are the top 6. All right, guys. So here's the top 6 that just dropped. about 30, 45 minutes ago. Let me take this graphic off of Josh and I'll put one at the bottom. So here you guys have it. Whoever wants to take, a first glance or first, comment and say what your initial thoughts are on this top 6. Did they get it right? Is someone too high, someone too low? Whoever wants to take it away, you guys can be my guest.
Hang on, I'll let Josh go first, but there are people listening, so let me just reiterate. Bama's at 1, Notre Dame's at 2, Clemson's at 3, Ohio State's 4, A&M's 5, Florida's 6.
Attaboy, Lyle. As a radio man first.
Babe.
Yeah, so you heard it right there from Lyle. But look, the reason why I want to jump in here first is because I have said these last few weeks, and some of you have agreed. I don't remember if there was a disagreement, but I know that at least one of you agreed with me. I'm not sold on A&M yet, even though they have that head-to-head win over Florida State. So let me try to make sense of this real quick. I think the committee got it absolutely right. I think they got it right. In my personal ranking, I would still put Florida at 5 and A&M at 6. But here's why I'm okay with this. The committee right now, they're setting a precedent by saying that we value these head-to-head games. We not only value the eye test, we don't just value the overall records, but we care about what these teams do against each other. There's a reason why I think, obviously, what's up?
You said Florida State.
Florida. Yeah, I think we all know I didn't mean Florida State. They're not good. And apparently don't want that smoke. Actual quote from Dabo Sweeney. Just kidding. He didn't say that. We'll
get to that later because Dabo's a moron.
We'll get to that. Yeah. But look, personally, I would have the Gators over Texas A&M in my personal ranking. But again, I understand why the playoff committee did this, and it's because they want to set that precedent. Because A&M has that field goal victory over Florida, and they looked really good while they did it. That's why A&M is at 5, despite being 5-1, while Florida is 6-1, has more wins, has beaten better teams, but they have that head-to-head loss to A&M. So I'm fine with that. In my personal ranking, I'd probably have A&M at 7. I'd have Florida at 5, and I'd probably have Cincinnati at 6. So that's the way that I would do this. But with that being said, I think that the committee got this right if they're trying to set a precedent based off of those head-to-head wins. So I'll talk about other things later and how I think they may have contradicted themselves as we get to look at some other teams in the rankings. But at least for the top 6, I totally understand it. And although I disagree with 5 and 6 in my own personal ranking, I still think they got it right. And I completely understand why.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I'm on the same boat as you. I think that Florida is a better team than A&M. But you know what? If they beat Alabama come the SEC title game, it's not really going to matter if they're 5 or 6. But like you said, A&M beat Florida. They get the 1-spot jump. I'll tell you what. I mean, Josh kind of talked about the 5-6. I think it was no doubt Bama was going to be 1. Clemson at 3 over Ohio State. Look, it makes some sense. Not only have they played more games, but their one loss was without Trevor Lawrence, and it was without a bunch of defensive players too. I'll tell you what. I thought Ohio State was going to be 3. I agree with the rankings, but I did think Ohio State was going to be 3, and I expect Ohio State to win out. When I saw Clemson was at 3, I actually jumped out of my seat. I was like, "Let's go! Are you kidding me?" Because if you remember last year when I said this on the first show at about this time, I'm going to say it again. The team that starts the first week of the college football rankings at number 3 has never actually ended in the top 4 and gone to the playoff. So that says to me, is Notre Dame beating Clemson in the ACC title game? Here we go. I didn't have any faith before that they could beat Trevor Lawrence and beat Clemson twice. Now, all of a sudden, I see that number 3 spot goes to the Tigers, and I'm jumping out of my seat. I also see that the team that started as the number 2 seed in the first week of the rankings has won the last 4 national titles. So,
boy,
here we go.
It's rigged right now.
Oh,
we know it's rigged for Notre Dame now.
Absolutely. But no, in all seriousness, I just wanted to get that out there. Top 6, I think they got it right.
I agree. I think the top 6 they really nailed. The one thing that I don't want to say respect the committee for doing, but I commend them for doing is putting Ohio State at 4. They're obviously a top 4 team in the country at all regards. We've seen it. They're one of the best teams in the country. The one reason you put them at 4 and not at 3 is because I say of the sample size they've had so far. Only 4 games compared to the 7, 8, and 8 to the top 4 teams. I really, really think Ohio State's a great team. We saw this last week. We'll get into this later, But I really think Ohio State has one of the best all-around players in the country in Justin Field. They have a great receiving core, a good defense. Their secondary is lacking a bit, which they'll have to fine-tune moving forward. But I think putting Ohio State at 4 solidifies and shows that they're a top 4 team, but they have a smaller sample size and really haven't done enough for the eye test moving forward to put them in a top 3, I believe. So having Ohio State at 4, I really commend the committee for doing that and keeping them in the top 4, even though they have a much smaller sample size than everyone else, because I think you guys can agree with me. They are a top 4 team in the country, but who knows? We've only seen 4 games out of them compared to 7 and 8 respectively to the other teams.
Yeah, I mean, again, no shock in the top 6. I guess the biggest surprise is the Clemson 3, Ohio State 4. Now, I was watching the playoff show, it was 30 minutes ago, and they pretty much said they gave the edge to Clemson because they did go into South Bend. They didn't have Trevor Lawrence. And, I mean, let's be real, Clemson, they played awful, but they could have and should have probably won that game in the final minute and a half, and then Notre Dame came back and turned into the crazy, this amazing offensive team that we didn't know they had that in them. But I got no problem with it at 3 and 4. I know Josh touched on it, 5 and 6. It's good now to see, but Florida, they control their destiny. I mean, essentially, if they just win out and they beat Alabama in the SEC title game, they're going to be in. It doesn't matter if they're 7, doesn't matter if they're 5, doesn't matter if they're 6. If they beat Alabama, they're going to be in. Texas A&M, again, I've talked about this in previous shows. For whatever reason, a lot of Texas A&M fans in one of my videos from a few weeks ago, they just all attacked me because I said they had some close victories over Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, but they were saying, they pulled away late and it wasn't that close. But I don't think that Texas A&M is the 5th best team in the country. Again, things are going to play itself out. Teams are going to lose. It'll be interesting to see if, Florida were to lose, and then what happens if Clemson loses to Notre Dame in the SEC title game. What do they do with A&M? But for the most part, I got no problem with it. Again, it is early. We still have another month to go. And as, again, Reese Davis said it, everyone can say it, this stuff's going to play itself out. But it is interesting, though, just this whole Clemson at 3, Ohio State at 4 thing. I mean, I get you want to kind of knock Ohio State for maybe struggling this past weekend against an Indiana team, which I think we all can agree now is officially a top 15 team in the country. So
hang on. I heard you say it. I've heard Josh say it. Lyle, would you do me the honor of actually saying it and admitting it now, or you're gonna keep pushing it off?
No, I mean, they're a good team. They're a top 15 team. I just don't think they're contenders.
All right, there you go. That's
yeah. So I get the pushing them back one, maybe because they've only played 4 games, but I mean that's still a great win for Ohio State. Looking at Clemson's schedule, the one thing I didn't understand was I forget because they have a new head of the committee. It's Iowa's athletic director, I think this year. I forget what his name is, but he was talking about Clemson. Every game they've played so far, they've absolutely dominated except for Notre Dame. But, I mean, Clemson was on upset watch for a good amount of that Boston College game. I guess he forgot about that. And I don't think that's, again, Clemson, there's easily a top 4 team in the country. But the week prior to losing to Notre Dame, they struggled to beat a Boston College team, which no disrespect to Boston College, but they're not a top 25 team. They're not one of the better teams in the ACC, and he's just forgetting that happened. And you look at the rest of their schedule, I do get that they beat Miami, who's the top 10 team in the country, but what's a more impressive win, guys? Do you think a win over Miami or a win over Indiana? I think Indiana's a better team than Miami, so I'd give the more impressive win to Ohio State. Again, it's early. None of this matters. It's just 3-4. This will all work itself out. But I did think it was kind of interesting where they were praising Clemson so much, where we haven't seen them in a few weeks. The last time we saw them, they lost. And Ohio State's coming off a really thrilling and a really impressive victory over Indiana. But again, it won't matter for another month.
I mean, Miami versus...
The new committee chair is Iowa 80, Gary Barta.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, Iowa versus, I was just going to say, Miami versus Indiana, those feel like pretty even wins to me. I don't know.
Oh, I know. I think I'm not discrediting. I'm just saying I think Indiana is a more impressive win than the Miami one because I think Indiana is a better team than Miami. That's all I'm saying. I think if that's the determining factor, who has the better win, I would give the slight edge to Ohio State on that one.
All right. Well, I think it's close, but the thing with Ohio State, and they talked about it today on the show, they're very clearly not as good as they were last year. That secondary is a serious problem. And I thought, okay, Okudah leaves, Arnett leaves. They've still got a guy like Sean Wade. They'll be fine. And they've got a bunch of other 5-stars. They're very clearly struggling. They are not as strong a team as they were last year when they had Okudah, Chase Young, Arnett, J.K. Dobbins, other guys. They're still a good team, but but I don't have a problem with Clemson being ranked over them. To be honest, if Clemson Ohio State matched up again, I would feel pretty confident picking Clemson this time.
For this Ohio State team, I tweeted this out and sent it out from the show account too. Is Michael Penix Jr. Let me take this back. Michael Penix Jr. this past weekend has thrown for more yards against Ohio State than anybody in a single game in the last 20 years. 20 years for this Ohio State dynasty. And like I said earlier, the one thing that will hold them back moving forward will be their secondary.
100%.
Yeah, and that's something that I said earlier. That's something that I said earlier this season about Oregon is losing three of their four starting DBs, but Ohio State's in the same situation because they also lost Jordan Fuller, who's probably been the most impactful player on the Rams defense this year, at least in regards to newcomers. And he's a guy that I think gets forgotten a lot in that same conversation. And Ohio State's doing the same thing. They've got to have three new starters back there, and I think that they're a really good team. But the reason why I think that this is an interesting debate is because you have that Miami win. That's also going to be something that you talk about with when it comes to the ACC, where you're going to talk about with Notre Dame, and the BC thing is also another ACC thing where you see Clemson play against them and BC put up a good fight against Notre Dame too. So I almost think that's a moot issue if you ask me, because I think when you also look at Ohio State, this is a team that was up by 28 points 2 minutes into the third quarter. Like, this game should not have been a 3-point game or a 6-point game or whatever the final score was. Ohio State had it in the bag, and the reason Indiana was able to come back was because they completely flipped the offensive game plan, except for the fact that they still ran the ball more than 5 times in the second half, which they should not have done a single time. They should not have run the ball once in the second half. But in the first half, like, they scored their first touchdown because they were they threw a 5-yard out route. And that's the only way they could get the ball moving offensively. And I thought, all right, well, they're just going to stick to doing that all game. No, they let Penix throw the ball deep every play, and it worked, and they picked apart the secondary. And that's the thing that, let's say that these playoffs start today, they're going up against Mac Jones and Alabama and that receiving core. So I think that's a liability for Ohio State at this point. And you make a really good point. Like, this is not the same Ohio State team we saw in the past. Mm-mm. If you watch that for anybody that watched any of our NCAA football streams, Brady and I did the Oregon-Ohio State game, and we both agreed. This was a month and a half, 2 months ago at this point. We both said Ohio State was our title favorite going into the season. And 4 games in, when the offense has looked really good and the defense has had its moments, I think we all kind of agree that they are not the team we expected them to be. They're still really good. Justin Fields is elite. He's going to be a top 8 pick, but they're not quite exactly how we thought they were going to be. And it's still early for them too. Mm-hmm. They still have some time, and I fully expect them to win out and go to the playoff. And heck, they could even win that first game too. But I don't know. I mean, I completely understand why they're at 4. Not only just how they've played. I think Clemson's probably the better team at this point too. But their sample size is smaller than these other teams, and with the way that they've played, I think there's easily 3 teams that are better than them up to this point.
Offense wins you games. Defense wins you championships.
There we go. So
yes,
Ohio State's got a lot to improve on, but yeah, those are the top 6. We're now going to get to 7 through 25. But while Brady gets the graphic up for 7 through 25, is it still that Texas A&M is the most just random, slept on, Verge playoff team? I just feel like we have not heard of them. We don't hear about Kellen Mond, and they're just sitting there at 5, and they literally have a good chance to make the playoff. I just think it's random that we barely heard of them.
So let me toss this in real quick. And obviously, everybody's been talking about them for these last few weeks too. But up until the Steelers were 8-0, I feel like people weren't talking about them that much. They were 8-0, but everybody was paying attention to other people, right?
Maybe West Coast, AFC country here, where I am, they most definitely were talking about.
I don't even get them on TV.
Exactly.
They're the only undefeated team in the NFL. Don't get them on TV.
You might not even see them this weekend either, or this Thursday night either.
Well, I don't know. I think the reason we don't hear about A&M at 5, just really quick before we move on, is because they might not move. Unless Bama loses, they might stay in that spot the rest of the way. That's why we don't hear about them. I don't really know how good their shot is to make it unless Bama loses.
Well, as I said last week, their only shot of making the playoff is Florida losing in the SEC title game and Clemson losing in the ACC title game. That's their only shot. And even then, maybe a team overtakes them because they aren't in the SEC title. But Brady, get up those 7 through 25 so we can talk about the rest of the rankings. And for those of you that are joining us right now, we're doing the ranking show. If there is something you'd like to hear our opinions on, whether it's a team, whether they're too high, too low, if you think a team has a chance of making it, just anything in regards to the college football playoff, you guys can donate to the super chat, $1, $2, however much you'd like to donate to help support the show. And that way we'll throw your comment on the screen. We'll ask your questions to the guys. You'll get our thoughts. So, you see Iowa there at 24. Do you think they have a chance of making the playoff? You can hear our thoughts on that. The Chanticleers, are they the best team in college football? Well, if you'd like to find out, you guys can ask us in the super chat. All right, guys, 7 through 25. We'll stick on the first chunk, kind of 7 through 16, the first little photo we got here. Any big takeaways, instant reactions from seeing 7 through 16 right there, and what stood out to you the most?
I'm not even going to touch on Cincinnati because for people that have watched the show before, you guys know I'm sold on them. So I'll keep that one short and simple. Desmond Ritter's elite. Another fantastic game from him and a huge win over UCF. So I thought they were very impressive. And I already said I would have him at 6. But again, I totally get the playoff rankings, how they are right now. So let's just see Cincinnati moving forward. But I'm confident with them. Here's my thing. And friend of the show, Peter Warren, is not going to be happy with me. Northwestern was fantastic this last game. The Fighting Reese Davises, very impressive. Here's my thing, and I told you guys that I thought that there were a few consistencies, so I'm going to try to get this in before I buffer again. They're ranked 8th at 5-0, and I think it's a little bit of a stretch, and I think the Wisconsin win is impressive. They've had some nice wins, but I'm not sure if I'm more sold on a team like Northwestern over teams like a 2-loss Georgia, Miami, even BYU. I know that's something that we're going to talk about in a few minutes. They're all the way down at 14. But look, like, one of the issues that I have here is, I'm going to jump in with BYU a little bit here. I said that the playoff committee says that they value those head-to-head wins. They've set that precedent. They've set the precedent that they care about the eye test. They care about the sample size and everything. If you're taking into account all of these different things, why is BYU so low and why is Northwestern so high? BYU has a bigger sample size. They might not have as impressive wins, we'll say, against more competitive teams. They have embarrassed everyone they've played. And they've got that 0 in the loss column, too. They're 9-0. Northwestern's 5-0. So how much does the playoff committee really care about being undefeated? Forget about Marshall. Forget about Coastal Carolina. Forget about USC. They're all undefeated, but they're all towards the bottom because they either don't have the sample size or they're simply not as good as these teams at the top. But a 5-0 Northwestern team that has a few impressive wins is getting so much more recognition than a team like BYU, who at 9-0, I think has been totally disrespected. I don't think they're a playoff team, at least not right now, but they totally were disregarded in this aspect. What does the playoff committee actually think about undefeated teams? Because I think right here they're showing Northwestern's undefeated. We're putting them in the top 10. We're putting them at number 8 behind Cincinnati after an impressive win. Slow, boring, but an impressive win over Wisconsin. But we're going to ignore a team like BYU, who's beaten every team they've played by 90 points. And a team that, if you're looking at the eye test, has been phenomenal.
I'll give you the exact reason why. BYU's strength of schedule is 97th. Northwestern's is 28th, and that's adjusted every week.
I totally understand that. But again, if we're looking at the sample size,
70 team spread.
Yeah, and if we're looking at the sample size of 5 games, and we're looking at how the Big Ten has been strange this year, what would we rather see? Would we rather see an offense that has proven to be one of the most explosive in the country based off of the statistics, based off of the eye test, based off of even the teams they've played and the sample size? They've done it every week for 9 straight games. Or are we going to look at a team that has had some slow starts, has been really, really good at times, but is also 5-0 in a conference that is all over the place right now? And I get that it's the Big Ten. I totally think that the Big Ten is obviously one of the top 5 in college football. We're talking about the Big 12 here too, so they're still better than the Big 12. But again, I think that's an inconsistency in the playoff rankings at the moment, because do they care about these wins and losses, or do they care more about head-to-head or the eye test or whatever? We've also got a 3-2 Iowa team at 24 that has 3 wins over teams all below 500. Penn State and Michigan State and Minnesota are irrelevant. if you had said that at the beginning of the season, I would have called you crazy. But they are irrelevant teams. So why does Iowa get that love with two?
There
when
we
you
go.
look at these. Oh, did I freeze again?
Yeah.
Oh, what was the last thing I said?
You barely froze for half a second. You're fine.
So again, like I know that the 3-2 Iowa thing doesn't really matter, but that's where I see the inconsistencies. I thought the top 6 was great for the most part. I think these rankings are pretty good, minus a few blemishes here and there, like Northwestern being as high as they are, BYU being completely ignored. But this is where the inconsistencies are for me. Like, do you care about teams being undefeated or not?
Yeah, I thought Northwestern at 8 was a little high, and I'm glad you touched on them because there's a couple teams I wanted to touch on, and we can circle back to me at some point later. I'll stick on one, and I'll move one more spot below you. I know this is wasted energy because they're a 2-loss team that isn't going to get in, but I'm going to waste my energy on it anyway. What is Georgia doing at 9? Why are they at 9? They lost by 2 scores to Florida. They lost by 17 to Bama, and they beat an Auburn team that I don't think is very good. They're rewarded at 9. I mean, you've got Indiana below them. You've got BYU below them. You've got Oregon below them. Like, let me make something very clear to Georgia. I've wanted to say this for a while, but like since that Florida loss, let me make something very clear. If you do not find a quarterback, you will not win. It's as simple as that. I mean, you see Stetson Bennett rolling out there against Alabama, and they're losing pretty handedly. That's not going to cut it. I know JT Daniels just came in. He had a really good game. It was against Mississippi State. We'll see how he fares the rest of the way. They've got a top 15 recruit coming in next year. Maybe he's the answer, but it's as simple as that. I'm not even going to talk about Justin Fields. That's in the past. I'm talking right now and moving forward. If they do not find a quarterback in a state of football in today's world that is very offensive driven and very quarterback driven more so, you will not win. I don't think they should be at 9 for having 2 bad losses. I think they should be a lot lower than this. It's wasted energy because they're not getting in anyway. But I think being at 9 with teams undefeated below them and even a 1-loss Indiana team or a 1-loss Miami team, that's a waste.
Plus, I just want to add, this is also coming off a game in which they literally struggled to beat, 2-win Mississippi State. So it's not like they're coming off a pretty good win. They literally beat Mississippi State by 7, but it was, pretty much close until the fourth quarter. So, yeah, I agree. And I think Kirk Herbstreit, was preaching this as well, saying Georgia at 9 is an absolute joke over some of these other teams.
They need JT Daniels to be the guy moving forward, and not just this season, but in the future too, because he obviously looked really good. I think we're going to talk about him later. Spoiler alert. But this is, you're right. I mean, I've been a huge proponent of the Jake Fromm is not bad train these past couple of years, but he was efficient and he got the job done. But you're kind of right. Like, they're not going to take that next step until they have an elite quarterback, because if you look at all of these other teams ahead of them, or at least those teams in the top 4 and 5 and maybe 6, if we're talking about Kellen Mond too, all those teams have good quarterbacks, and we've ragged on Ian Book before too, and when he needed to play well this year, he stepped up and he's been good. So that's what all these other teams have that they don't have right now.
I'll say this, surprisingly, I'm not going to jump on and touch on Indiana because I think 12 is a perfect spot for him after losing to Ohio State, keeping it close, dropping from, 9 to 12. I think that's a very fair for them. The one thing I will give a nod to is it's an undefeated team, but I think this is so cool seeing Coastal Carolina at 20, just being in the top 25 in general. Doesn't matter where they were falling, the season they've had, the hype they've had around their team, the Chanticleers. I think it's so cool seeing them at 20, getting some respect, some recognition. They'd want to be higher. Obviously, every team wants to be higher. But I think putting a team like that at 20 is a very respectable and I think fair and fit ranking for a team like Coastal Carolina. And they're right there paired with North Carolina. So you got some of the Carolinas right there. So I'm a big fan of having Coastal Carolina right up there in the top 20.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to kind of go down the list a little, share my thoughts. Before we do, our man Steven Smith, after Farmageddon and Bedlam, do you think the rankings match where Iowa State and Oklahoma should be ranked? And who do you think will be in the Big 12 championship? I'm going to kind of touch up on what I think about where these Big 12 teams are. But guys, just a quick answer to answer Steven's question. Right now, you have to pick 2 teams you think end up in the Big 12 title game. Which 2 teams are you going with? Me personally, I think at this point it's going to be Oklahoma and Iowa State. Those are my 2.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And I'm doing it reluctantly so because Oklahoma State was embarrassed this week, and I kind of had a feeling that's where it was going to go, but I felt like I needed to pick them for pride's sake with my preseason predictions. But I'm not impressed with Oklahoma. Like, I'm sorry. I know that they beat Oklahoma State, and I know that they have that win over Texas, but like them getting hot against TCU and Kansas and Texas Tech, like, is this really where we're going with this? Of Oklahoma being elite again at 6-2, just beating up on teams that aren't very good, and an Oklahoma State team that has been very underwhelming this season? I think Blake's right, but I'm just not sold on Oklahoma at all, and I think 11 is kind of high too.
Oh, I'm not either. I think it's going to be Oklahoma and Iowa State like you guys. But I think the easiest way to sum up Oklahoma is they're the best team in a really bad Big 12. Like, I don't think much of them at all. They're not a contender. I think 11-12 is right about right. I mean, you can argue they should be lower, but that's who they are. They're the best team in a really bad conference.
I think, I don't know. I mean, Spencer Rattler's shown flashes of being a really, really good quarterback this year, but you also saw the game where he got benched right before halftime. So it's been, to say a roller coaster for Spencer Rattler so far this season would be an understatement, I would say. I think if, as it stands right now, you're going to have to do Oklahoma, Iowa State, just as the ranking from what we've seen from the Big 12 in general. That's where you're going to have to go with it. So I'm going to go with those two.
Yeah. So again, if you have anything you'd like to ask us, like Steven just said, you guys can donate to the super chat. We'll answer your guys' questions in regards to the playoff. But yeah, let me just give my thoughts on pretty much everything I see here. The first thing, hopefully Cincinnati, I've said this in previous shows, I really want to see them be the first group of 5 team that cracks the playoff, because again, I think they have the defense that can keep them in a tight matchup against an Alabama, Ohio State, at Clemson like that. So hopefully since they can keep going up, I think Northwestern at 8, I think we need to pump the brakes on them. It's a great story with how they won 3 games last season. They've been great so far this year. I know their strength of schedule is pretty high. I'm not going to get too excited over their win against Wisconsin from this past weekend. Wisconsin had played 2 games prior, and they were against 2 really bad teams. So we don't necessarily know how good this Wisconsin team is. We're not going to see them again this weekend. And I get their defense has looked really good. This Northwestern offense, if they're in the playoff against any of these teams, I get it. Their defense might hold them in it. Northwestern's not going to be able to score enough points to keep up with some of these teams. I think having them at 8, maybe push them, because I think they were 19 in the AP poll last week. I know it's different than the playoff rankings. Put them at like 15 or 14, but I think all of a sudden leapfrogging them to number 8, I think that's a bit of a stretch. But then again, looking at some of these teams, like, would you have Indiana over them? Would you have Iowa State over them? One team that should be over them is BYU, which I do want to get to right now. If you just tuned in, Georgia at 9 is an absolute disgrace. Miami at 10, it's not going to matter. Oklahoma at 11, sure, they're climbing up the rankings. As I think Lyle just said it perfectly, they're the best team in an awful conference, but I'm not going to get too worked up about Oklahoma because I don't think they stand any chance. BYU, I've been saying this for weeks that I think if a group of 5 team were to make it into the playoffs, Cincinnati should get the edge. But BYU at 9-0, I get it. The teams they've played have been awful. But that is not their fault at all. If you guys remember, the schedule that BYU was supposed to have in 2020 was absolutely nuts. I couldn't find it because you can't find the original schedules anymore. But they had I think 8 or 9 Power 5 teams. They were playing a bunch of Pac-12 teams. They had some really good Power 5 matchups, and then everything just, hit the fan. And I don't think that should be a punishment. They're outscoring opponents by 34 points. That's the most of any team in the FBS. Again, granted, they're playing bad teams, but they're doing what you're supposed to do against bad teams, and that is, dismantle them, which they've been doing. Again, they shouldn't be maybe in the top 6 or 7, but having BYU at 14, especially I think they were ranked 7th or 8th in the AP poll, I want to say, so that's a huge jump. And in regards to this whole thing about how BYU said, we'll play anyone we want, we'll do it, and there's something with Washington. 2 things. First off, I get where they're coming from because Washington, they were pretty much holding out for the ASU-Utah game to get canceled, which it was. So I guess assuming now Washington's going to play Utah. But if you're at BYU, their coach said they practiced yesterday anyway. So just practice all week, even if Washington is pretty much saying there's a 5% chance we'll play you. Practice, pretend like you're going to play. I think if I'm BYU, try to schedule a game this weekend against Tulsa. Tulsa, they just had their game against Houston canceled. If BYU can play Tulsa, I get it. It's not a huge opponent. Tulsa's in the top 25. If BYU can beat Tulsa by 2 or 3 touchdowns convincingly, that can help the committee believe them a little more. But BYU's in a tough position because they don't play for another few weeks, I think. They're playing San Diego State, I think, on like December 12th. So hopefully, and even the coach said in a few weeks, they want to schedule some games beforehand. Even the week after San Diego State, they're open to playing whoever they want. They just, want an advance notice. But yeah, I think BYU at 14, I know everyone kind of touched on it. I think that's far too low. I know, again, Kirk Herbstreit, who I think, him along with Joel Klatt, those are the two guys whose opinions I take very seriously. I think a lot of people respect their opinions. And Herbstreit was pretty much in disbelief over the fact that BYU was ranked at 14. So again, the Cougars, it's not their fault they're playing lousy teams. The fact that they're able to even get 10 games on their schedule is remarkable. Hopefully they can get one Power 5 team, or even, again, like a Tulsa they can play, so they can convince the committee that they're worthy of at least being a top 10 team.
Here's some of the teams BYU is slated to play this year, Blake. A simple Google search would have.
I tried Googling it, but maybe, just...
Did you Google original 2020 BYU schedule?
Yes.
Oh, so did I, and I found it.
Well,
They would have played Utah, Michigan State, Arizona State, Minnesota.
Those were their first 4 games, by the way.
Yeah. Missouri, Houston, Boise State, San Diego State, and Stanford.
yeah, so, that's a much better schedule than what they have now. But they have gone undefeated. I'm not exactly sure. I know someone in the comments is saying, if we can somehow get a BYU-Cincinnati matchup, I don't know if Cincinnati has an opening in their schedule.
They do.
They do. I've said this for weeks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they should play each other.
Yeah, no, I would
at least in a bowl
100%.
game.
Not a bowl game. They need to schedule that ASAP. Say,
Yeah.
Winner gets in. There's your little playoff to get in.
Mhm.
yeah, I think that'd be fair. Like, winner of that game gets in.
Yeah, they have an open slate the same week. They should do it. If they're serious about getting in, they should do it.
Yeah, so BYU, hopefully, again, I truly believe they want to play whoever they can because they want to get in. But I do get their hesitation with how Washington was kind of giving them a cold shoulder. But hopefully BYU can go. One final thing I kind of want to touch up on in regards to these rankings is the fact that the Pac-12 is officially screwed. I get Oregon is probably their best bet. Even with now, SC is only 3 behind because Oregon is, I think, 11, 10, 9, something like that in the AP poll. They're at 15, SC's at 18. Oregon and SC, I guess SC looked, pretty decent against Utah this past weekend. Oregon has not really looked good at all this year. They've played some lousy teams, and they have not looked good. SC hasn't looked good, again, aside from Utah for the most part. I just think having Oregon at 15 pretty much just says no matter what happens, it is a pretty much, I'm not going to say it's a 0% chance, but I'm giving the Pac-12 a 0.1% chance now of reaching the playoff between these two teams because I think, eye test has showed these Pac-12 teams aren't that good.
Oregon
So I
is
think
9
they're
in the
both-
AP poll.
They were 9. So yeah, that just goes to show they have no confidence.
I think both Oregon and USC are completely deserving of the rankings that they have in the college football playoff ranking. If this was a full season and we were at this point and these teams were, I don't know, SC was a 1-loss team, Oregon was still undefeated or even a 1-loss team, sure, put them as high as you want. But like the fact of the matter is that both of these teams are deserving where they're at in the college football playoff ranking, but shouldn't be higher. I know a lot of people are upset that Oregon should not be higher, and like, why? Like, why on earth would they be higher? They came into this season with Tyler Shuck expecting to be phenomenal, and the offense in their first 2 games started slow and then finished strong. Sure, they clobbered UCLA offensively. They got torched by a backup quarterback on a UCLA team that, quite frankly, is quite bad. And they gave up 35 points, and if we're being totally honest, they were a dropped pass away from losing this game. And UCLA is not very good. And this Oregon defense has continued to be really, really bad. And then alternatively for USC, expected the offense to be unreal. And on the other side of the ball, it's been the defense that's been really, really good for USC. And the offense has been very slow to get started. So, like, if these two teams start to put it together and they start to look a little bit better as the season goes on, fine. But they're already not in a good spot in the first playoff rankings because the committee has showed that they have to go a long way and get a lot of help. But like, bottom line, if these two teams figure out the eye test, as we keep talking about, play each other undefeated in the Pac-12 championship, then great. But also, we're running out of games in the Pac-12. Like USC had a positive case today. Arizona State, Utah just got canceled. Like there's a chance that more games in the Pac-12 start getting canceled. And if that's the case, say a team like Oregon has a game that gets canceled, they should be reaching out to somebody immediately that's in these rankings if they're available and do whatever it takes to play them. Kind of like what Washington was trying to do. And something that they just talked about on this ESPN show, an hour ago at this point, was saying it is really bad for the Pac-12 that UW is not ranked either, because UW is currently undefeated. Probably they're a question mark on whether or not they should be ranked, but it kind of seems like the Pac-12 is being written off, even with a team like Washington not getting consideration. So I think you're kind of right. Pac-12's run out of time.
I thought Oregon should have been ranked a little higher than this. Like, why is Iowa State ahead of them? Why is Oklahoma ahead of them? Why is Georgia ahead of them? I mean, it's clear that it's clear that the lack of games is hurting teams. I personally would have had them a little bit higher than this. And again, I'm not going to totally write them off specifically, just because if Washington jumps into the rankings at some point, who then Oregon beats, if they potentially have a ranked win over Washington, if they potentially have a ranked win over USC in the championship game, maybe there's a chance. It's an outside chance, but I thought that was a little bit of a snub, even at 3-0. Like, I mean, you can argue with like Cincinnati. I don't want to stir the pot too much here because I know we need to move on. Like, Memphis is a fine team. UCF is 5-3. They're okay. They haven't had any amazing wins. Neither is Oregon, but they are playing Power 5 schools versus Group of 5 schools. So that's my only case you can make with Oregon.
Yeah, so those were the first playoff rankings. Again, at this point, it's interesting to see. It's interesting to see what the playoff committee thinks. We still got another month to go. A lot can happen. A lot can change. A lot of teams can move. A lot of teams can go down. But again, it's interesting to see what the committee's thinking. And we'll just have to play this a week by week, year by year. But guys, it's time now to get to our stars of the week. Every week we choose a player, a coach, a team, anything like that, and we give our star of the week who we thought had the best performance and MVP performance. So Brady, I'm interested to see who yours is, because unfortunately the streak is over, but he still could be a star of the week, so that'll be kind of fun to see. So again, let us know in the live chat, let us know in the comments who your star of the week is. This is great also because it helps us know about a lot of underrated players that had some really good performances, because we unfortunately can't see every great performance out there. We can't see every stat sheet out there, so there might be some that we personally didn't even notice, didn't even see. So let us know in the comments who you thought the best performance with this past week and who your star of the week would be. So Brady, let's get your always beautiful graphic up and let's talk about our 4 stars of the week.
My Tom Allen streak, Blake, like you said, is over. It's a shame.
Happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
Happens to the best of us.
So am I starting it off? I'll start it off since I'm on the left. I'm going with friend of the program, Jarrett Patterson. He was, I don't remember what site had him as it, but he was named by some sites as the National Offensive Player of the Week, and I think that he totally flew under the radar somehow. He was Offensive Player of the Week, Maction baby. They're probably playing as we speak.
No, right.
No Maction this week.
Oh, that's right. Next week. We get Maction next week again. But 31 carries for 301 yards and 4 touchdowns. This is a player that continuously just soars under the radar, and he's fantastic. One of the more dynamic backs in college football, but because he's at a school like Buffalo, it's a smaller program, he flies under the radar. And, you know, he's got fantastic numbers this season. 301 yards and 4 touchdowns in a game is borderline unheard of. And MAC Offensive Player of the Week, and in some cases, National Offensive Player of the Week. So Jarrett Patterson, got to bring him back on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we haven't heard about as much Boise State news as we did last year when they were ranked really high, but they're still 4-1, obviously with the shortened schedule. But Khalil Shakir, who's my star of the week, their star wide receiver, he's been really good. This is his 3rd 100-plus yard game. This past weekend, he goes 11 catches, 130 yards, 2 touchdowns. Look, Boise State has very quietly produced a lot of good wide receivers over the years. I'm not even talking about since like the Titus Young, Kellen Moore era. They've pumped out some guys since then too. And Khalil Shakir, he was good last year. It looks like he's taken another step further this year because he's been great. This is also his 2nd game with 10-plus catches.
Lyle, I see your receiver stats, and I raise you some receiver stats. I'm going with a combination again. You know, Tom Allen's out of my mix because IU lost, but I think this is pretty warranted for a star of the week. I'm doubling up and going with Michael Penix and Ty Freifogel. Michael Penix, 27 for 51, 491 yards, the most passing yards any quarterback has ever put up against Ohio State in the last 20 years, and 5 touchdowns, 3 of those going to Ty Freifogel, 7 for 218 and 3 touchdowns. Ty Freifogel, Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week, and the first Big Ten receiver ever with back-to-back 200-plus yard receiving games. So my 2 stars, or joint stars, will go to the combination of Michael Penix and Ty Freifogel.
It's amazing how good of a game Freifogel ended up having, because early on, especially in that first quarter, he had like that drop pass on that 4th down that kind of looked like it was going to screw Indiana. Then there was that other one where Penix threw it like 5 yards to the right, and you're thinking, man, Freifogel, he's going to have an awful game. And then he just comes out and goes absolutely ballistic. So even if he would have those catches, he could have had a much better game. Also, yeah, Michael Penix, like 500 passing yards and 5 touchdowns. I was watching the game because, I had a highly considerable amount of money on it, but it didn't seem like, although he was throwing the ball on literally every play, it didn't seem like he had 500 passing yards and 5 touchdowns. Like, I get he was throwing it a lot, but my guess would have been like 400 and like 3 or 4. But like when you see 505, especially considering he completed like 50% of his passes, which shouldn't be a good game, you look at that. But what a game, Indiana.
Yeah.
Plus, that's all that matters.
I did say this earlier on the show is if Michael Penix could do this to an Ohio State team, imagine what if the rankings get shifted around, a Trevor Lawrence would do to Ohio State's defense.
Really, really quickly before Blake goes, because I've kind of been hard on Indiana in past weeks, so I'm going to say something nice about him, specifically about Freifogel. I know Brady's talked about some of their players in the past, receivers specifically. I remember a couple years ago, you really liked Simmie Cobbs, Brady. Yeah. And I know he never did much in the NFL. I think Freifogel might actually have a chance to shine at the next level. Like, I think he has a chance now with how he's played this year to really rise up some draft boards, not first round, but get drafted somewhere and latch on and make an impact.
The crazy thing is
not the numbers either. Like it's like the catches that he's making and the routes that he's running that are really impressive.
Yeah.
The crazy thing about this receiver squad is going into the year and last season, Whop Phillier was, the main IU receiver everyone was hyping up. Then all of a sudden, here comes Ty Freifogel.
I think the text I sent to you guys in the first quarter was not only are Michael Penix Jr. and Ty Freifogel not on the same page, they're in completely different chapters. And literally right after I sent that, they just like turned it on.
Yeah.
And we all agreed. I mean, we kind of all agreed that like a 28-7 scoreline or whatever at halftime was kind of like not fair to IU despite, -5 rushing yards. But by the end of the game, it was like, that's kind of what I was the score you would have expected from watching the full game.
So well done, Indiana. My star of the week goes to JT Daniels, his first collegiate, appearance. Or I don't know if he saw any garbage time in any Georgia games, but his first start at least since 14 months ago when he tore his ACL. And he comes out, he was great. Georgia's defense wasn't great, but he was great. 400 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. SEC Offensive Player of the Week. Lyle hit it up perfectly earlier. Georgia, you need a quarterback if you're going to succeed, if you want to make any sort of playoff push. JT Daniels is clearly the best option they have compared to what we've seen earlier in the year. Will he be able? I mean, it's too late now, I think, but it'll be interesting to see what he can do moving forward for them. But JT Daniels, he was impressive in his first outing. I still don't understand what Jamie Newman was doing looking at this quarterback class, deciding to opt out. I don't understand why, because I guess JT Daniels has been healthy for the last few weeks, why they've been going with Stetson Bennett, why they've been going with other options. But JT Daniels, he's a starting quarterback for Georgia the rest of the season. And well done, JT. I just had to throw this up there, a donation from our man Connor. I was thinking about this earlier because I was talking about the Liberty game from a few weeks ago with my uncle and dad, just about how that whole blocked field goal thing, how the Virginia Tech returns it for the touchdown, and it's called back, and Liberty goes on to win that game. So there you go right there. This is Star of the Week. I think that's a funny one, guys. There's been a lot of good ones so far in the chat. I know Josh is saying you have to read the comments.
Josh, when you put them on the screen, you have to read them. And so saying this is a good point.
Sorry about that.
Radio, Blake. Radio.
That's right. I keep forgetting we're a podcast. Start of the week, NC State's Dave Doran for not pointing Justin Fuente, making sure he didn't have any timeouts left to waste before blocking a Liberty game-winning field goal attempt. I still forget, guys, we are a podcast as well. We do this on YouTube. We do it live, but I forget people listen on Spotify, people listen on Apple Podcasts. So thanks, guys. Thanks for that. But again, there was a lot of people in the comments talking about who their star of the week was. Unfortunately, the comments are going too quickly. I don't really have enough time to go back, find all of them, say what your guys' stars of the week were, but a lot of great stars of the week. Guys, it's time now. Let's do it. Uni Watch, our favorite uniforms from this past weekend. There were some good ones. There were some good ones to get to. So again, let us know in the comments what your favorite uniform was from this past weekend. Let us know who you thought had the best unis. Let us know. We'll put those up on the screen. But these are our personal 4 favorites. Well, I guess our 3 personal favorites. 1 decided by the fans. Our favorite unis of the week. So Brady, get that beautiful looking graphic up so we can see our favorite uniforms of the week.
All right, whose could this be? We've got the Oregon Ducks. And guess what? It's mine.
Wow.
It's mine. If people have listened to the show for as long as we've been doing it, you guys know that I am the biggest hater of Oregon's uniforms. For the most part, like they're so close all the time. I feel like they're so close. And then they ruin it. Like the jerseys they had with Mariota, I thought were fantastic, but I just feel like they try to do too much. Look, these are probably my favorite Oregon. Sorry, I froze because somebody came up over my face on the video thing. Yeah, all right, top of the screen. Look, these are probably my favorite non-green Oregon jerseys they've ever come out with. I mean, these are just fantastic. All the textures, the Hawaiian like style around the collar, the Ohana jerseys, the helmets with the design on the wings going up the sides and the stripe down the middle. I think these are fantastic. I will say something that I've said basically every year since they started going with these numbers. These numbers are the worst in college football. I mean, and it's not close. They're horrible. They completely detract from the uniform. But look, I think they look pretty good here. And our friend James with the Florida logo as his picture, he says, I usually like Oregon's uniforms, but these have a lot going on. Look, I think this is the opposite. Like these, there's a lot going on in this, but I think it looks really good. And I usually hate Oregon's uniforms because I think there's too much going on. I think these are clean. I think these are really good. So Oregon, for the first time in probably 3 years, you get a gold star in my book. Well done. But the numbers, seriously, figure it out. They're horrible. Horrible.
Okay, so as Brady gets this one pulled up, he pulls up this week's Washington uniforms, and that was voted on by you guys in the poll this week. Every week we put out a poll a little bit before the show to vote on your favorite jerseys of the weekend, and this week the nominees we put out were Georgia, Florida, Washington, or as always, other. Close race this week. Washington won. I actually like these when I flipped on the game, and like I always say, usually if it's me, these guys can run out in white T-shirts for all I care. But watching this game this weekend, I saw these black Washington jerseys, and you got the purple W, and you got the white numbers. I thought they did a really good job this week, and evidently so did the fans. Again, close race, but 32.5% Washington prevails.
I will say this, the photo shoot that UW did to unveil these uniforms at the beginning of the season or a few weeks back, you know, they had the big LED screen with the Husky on it and all this was awesome. So big props to UW for the design on these. Big fan.
Yeah, also, like, I didn't like their uniforms with Nike, and I really like Nike uniforms typically. I mean, Adidas has just knocked it out of the park with UW.
Agreed.
I think they've nailed it.
Agreed.
Yeah, agree.
With the metallic W on the helmet too is a good touch as well.
It's clean. It's
Yeah.
shiny.
Thanks, Josh.
Mhm.
Mine, 3 for 3, we're going dark jerseys this week, which, I'm always a big fan of. I'm going with Georgia's for this week. They did sort of a, was this a throwback? What would you call these uniforms? They had like the bulldog with the spiked collar on the shoulders, and it had the equality patch on the chest, and just very simple black, white numbers, black jersey, no outline, nothing. So crisp, clean. This isn't the best of photos that I picked myself, but it was one of the first ones I saw and had to get this done. And you can never go wrong with the Georgia helmets. I think they always do a great job with them as well. So I'm going to go with Georgia. No mismatching stripes on these, Josh. Down the jersey and pants. You have a stripe, but it doesn't, mismatch with everything else. No. So I was Georgia looking pretty good in these black with white/gray pants as well.
Well, I'm going to kind of stick on what Brady talked about. And speaking of black uniforms, I can't tell you the last time Nebraska wore a black uni, but these look fresh. They even changed up the helmets. They instead of the red, they made them black. I don't know about the red, mouth guard and kind of strap. Everything kind of makes it a little worse. But these were fantastic. Nebraska, you guys lost in style. You guys lost to Illinois by about 30, but hey, you guys looked really good doing it. I like when the teams. I can't think of a team that has worn a black jersey that just said, you know what, black on this team, it doesn't really work. It looks awful. No thanks. Black on any team looks good. These look good for Nebraska. And again, if you're going to lose by 30, you guys might as well lose in style, guys.
Real quick, as James says, seemingly kind of disgustedly with what I said, Georgia was honoring the 40-year anniversary of their 1980 championship. Seriously. Sorry, James.
Well, there you go. So,
I think they might have worn a similar jersey last year, and it was like a big deal. But I don't think they had like the black highlights on the helmets because the like in practice or whatever. I think the defense is called like the black shirts or something. Our high school football coach out here was a Nebraska fan, and he like tried to implement some black shirts thing. So that's why I think you have that logo on the sleeve of like the skull and crossbones. But these are hype.
The red numbers on the shoulders is sort of a nice touch to it as well.
I like them. So these are our unis of the week. These were our favorites. We got the Q&A coming up in a few minutes, guys. Before we get to our Q&A, so get those questions ready. Again, if you have a question you'd like to be answered, you guys can donate to the Super Chat. We'll answer your guys' question. We're going to have about 20 minutes to do Q&A so we can get as many as we can. So, again, get those questions ready. Before we get to the Q&A, a few things. First, I'm going to get to Blake's bets, my bets of the week, and what I like for this upcoming weekend. Then we're going to give our updated Heisman list. I was talking with Brady. We're just going to give our updated top 3 in regards to who we think. I mean, if you guys want, you guys can give 4 or 5. It doesn't really matter, but I think top 3 for the most part. No need to go into explanation over that because there's no real need to explain why. Because I think for the most part, we're going to have the same guys. So we'll give our top 3. Before we do that, we'll get to Blake's bets first. Guys, last week, an okay week. We went 2-2. We're now 28-17 on the season. Again, I made a state line run this week, guys. The 5th week in a row, I've gone to Nevada to make bets. So all these bets, I'm telling you guys right now, I placed money on these. My money on them last week. I had Indiana plus 20.5. I went big on that. I had Brady back me up. I had him confirm that it was a good bet. It was. And so these are Blake's bets of the week, guys. These are my 5 bets I like this week. Ohio State, I like them 28 over Illinois. I think they're coming for blood this week after a close win last week. I like the over in the Clemson-Pittsburgh game of 55. Clemson, they can score 55 points themselves this week. Liberty, they're favored by 38 points over UMass, but whenever UMass plays, take the team that's playing them. NC State, I like them by 14 over Syracuse. Louisville just beat them by 30, and Louisville is an awful team. And finally, I like UCF minus 25 against South Florida. I think the Knights can put up 60 or 70 points in this game. So those are my 5 Blake's bets of the week. Again, I'm putting money on these. So you guys, if you guys want, you guys can go put money on them as well. All right, guys, again, just a few minutes to get to this before we get to our Q&A. No need to go too in-depth on this because we've talked about it in the past. So we're going to say things that have already been said. But right now, if the season ended today, you're a voter, which we all should be. Maybe we'll get that in a few years. You have to turn in your ballot. Again, if you guys want, you can just give me your top 5. But pretty much to make this quicker, top 3. Who would you guys have? 1 through 3, 1 through 4, 1 through 5, 1 through 50. It's good. Just let me know who you guys have on that list entering week 13, 14.
It's week 14, week 8, week 9, week 5, week 2. It all depends on which conference you ask.
My notes say week 12, so that's what I'm going with. It's not right, but I ranked 5, and I say this every time we do this. I usually go no particular order, but I did this week for one reason, which you'll see in a second. Number 1, Kyle Trask, 31 touchdowns and 3 interceptions is an NCAA best. Mac Jones of Bama's been really good. He's my number 2. Number 3, Breece Hall. I mean, I talked about it last week. He either leads or is top 2 in the Big 12 in every rushing category, leads the nation in rushing yards and second in touchdowns. Sam Howell at number 4. He's just really good, and he's very impressive even when they're losing. And then the reason I ranked him is because of the guys I have tied for number 5, and that's Lawrence and that's Fields. And I know that we can get into this and we can do a whole show talking about whether these two dudes are deserving, but The thing with Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, the reason why I have them ranked at 5 tied is because I think we can all agree that they have the highest upside out of any quarterback in college football right now. These two guys, Fields and Lawrence, they have the best pro potential. But the stats aren't there yet. Sample size too small for Fields. Trevor Lawrence, he's been out. Smaller sample size. The stats haven't been there, but he's been efficient. So I've got the two of them tied for 5.
I think my 5 is the same as the odds had them. If it was Vegas odds or whoever posted the odds today, it's Trask at 1, Jones at 2, Fields at 3, Lawrence at 4, Wilson at 5.
Yeah, I've got Trask at 1, Mac Jones at 2, Fields at 3. I've got Wilson at 4, and Trevor Lawrence at 5, just because of the missing a few games. He's still,
Trevor Lawrence.
Still Trevor Lawrence. Plug him right back into the system, and he's back to number 1 or number 2. It's Trevor Lawrence, like Lyle said.
Yeah. I think that at this point, it's a two-man race for the most part between Kyle Trask and Mac Jones, unless something happens. But those two guys have been the best. I got Kyle Trask at 1, Mac Jones at 2, Zach Wilson at 3. I mean, he's been fantastic. I mean, this guy, I don't even know where he would have been drafted, if he would have been drafted at all prior to the season. He's kind of pulling like a Joe Burrow, and now he's going to be a first-round pick. Maybe he'll be a top 10 pick. I got him at number 3. And number 4 is, I like how Josh mentioned Breece Hall. He's been the best running back in the country, but Najee Harris, he's probably, if Breece Hall is 1A, Najee Harris is 1B. So I'm just going to have those two tied for number 4. Again, when it's all said and done, Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields will probably finish in the top 5, assuming they get enough games in and they continue to light it up. They're the two best quarterbacks in the country, probably the two best players in the country. But again, this is kind of more of a stat-driven award, not necessarily who's just the better player. At number 5, guys, I'm going to give him some love because why not? I'm going to go with Grayson McCall, the quarterback for Coastal Carolina. Guys, he's been fantastic this season. He's a freshman. 1,600 yards, 18 touchdowns, 1 interception. He's going to finish the season probably with 3,000 yards, 25 touchdowns, maybe 1 interception. He's not getting any love anywhere. He's probably not going to finish in the top 10. So for that reason, I'm going to give him some love that he's deserving of. I'm going to put him in at number 5 for my Heisman votes. Because there you go, Grayson.
You know what? Give me Michael Penix in the top 6 as well. 11 touchdowns over the last 2 weeks. Why not?
There you go. So,
really quickly, where do you put Ian Book? Do you have him even in consideration at all for a top 5?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because all of a sudden after he won that Clemson game, people have been saying, I mean, not to win, but does he have a chance to be a finalist? He's probably, I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this. He's probably somewhere in the top 10, probably toward the lower half, but I mean, he won that big game and he's played well as of late.
The problem with him, though, his numbers are just like, so just like 62% completion percentage, 11 touchdowns with 1 interception.
Well, look at it. Well, his rushing stats too.
Well, I was going to go to that next. He has 6 rushing touchdowns, 364 yards, which is still decent, but he'll probably finish top 10. But again, it's just like, unless he comes out and against North Carolina, starts lighting it up in the next few weeks, which he very well can. But you're right. Like, he's probably top 10. But I don't think he's top 5 yet, but he definitely can get there, especially if Notre Dame keeps winning. And I can never remember this, especially now since the Heisman's not till January. Is it before or after conference championship games?
After
it concludes. So it's after? So if he comes out and he's able to beat Clemson in the ACC title game again, look, let me see look up what the odds are for Ian Book.
While you look that up, like that's what I meant. I'd have him like right at 10. He is in no way a real contender. Like,
as of now, he's not a contender. Let me just really quickly, I looked it up. What do we got here? Ian Book is currently 8 plus 8,000, so 80-1 odds. So that's some good money to be made right there if you want to bet on Ian Book. So those are our Heisman, those are our Heisman ballots. Again, it's changing on a week-to-week basis. For the most part, I think it's a 2-man race at this point, but we've seen anything can happen. A lot can change. But now, guys, it's time for the Q&A. We got about 15-20 minutes before we get to the pick'ems. So if you guys have any questions you guys have in regards to, again, the playoff rankings, matchups, teams, any random questions you got, if there's a question you really want to have answered, you guys can donate to the super chat for as little as $1, $2. We'll throw it on the screen. You guys have seen some super chats coming in earlier in the show from Man Steven, Connor. We've had some good ones. So again, if there's a question you guys would like to have answered, because there's a lot coming in right now. There's a lot going on. So if there's a question, again, you want answered, you guys can throw them up. I'm going to throw this one up right now, guys. Boomer Sooner, what do you guys think of Spencer Rattler? I know we've kind of talked about him in previous shows, so no need to go too in depth on him. But for someone that probably is watching for the first time, someone that wants to, pretty much know our opinions for the first time, I guess just a quick couple of sentences, what your reactions are and what he's done to this point of the season. I know at the beginning of the season wasn't as good, but he has turned things on as of late.
I think he's very talented. I think he's overrated. I think he's very talented, and I think that he has a lot of potential to get better, but he needs to take some strides, in my opinion. He'll get there, but my biggest takeaway from him this season is yeah, sure, he looks talented. He looks like a freshman. He looks like a true freshman, and especially in the early games, very rarely do you say that somebody looks like a true freshman when they throw for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. You typically say, oh, he looks fantastic, looks well beyond his years. No, but he still looks inexperienced even when he lights up teams. So that's just my 2 cents on it.
Ball control's got to get way better. He's got a ton of fumbles, and obviously he's got to cut down on some picks too. But he was highly recruited for a reason. After those first couple games, he's looked way better, and I think the sky's the limit for him going forward.
I said this earlier in the show. He's an elite athlete. He just needs to get it under control. He's had flashes of stardom, of what was expected of him, but he was also benched right before halftime in a game earlier this season. So to keep things under control, I think that benching was a reality check for him, was a good thing. So Lincoln Riley sort of played the long run on that one. So I think Spencer Rattler has the potential to be a great quarterback, especially under a great coach like Lincoln. But this season so far, it's been pretty inconsistent.
Yeah, I mean, he's been underwhelming, but he's definitely looked better over the last few weeks. Just imagine if Lincoln Riley stays there for a couple more years, what Spencer Rattler's going to look like next year as he gets more time to develop. This guy can become scary good. I definitely want to take a number 1 in fantasy. Our man Steven, again, with the Big 12 Conference having the best defense overall among the Power 5. Lyle, this question is directed specifically towards you. Are you ready to believe in the Big 12 being able to play defense?
I'm not. I mean, the rest of the Big 12 isn't very good. I know, for example, West Virginia, at least early in the year, they were playing well on defense. And, I mean, according to the stat, again, best defense overall among Power 5 conferences. But how would they do against Alabama, against Clemson, against Ohio State? They're not playing those guys. And usually when you play teams in your own conference as a whole, Big 12 defense isn't that great. So, look, I mean, it's a good start. If it keeps going, maybe I'll change my mind in a year or two. If some of these guys get to the NFL and actually make a real impact, then that'll help too. Right now, though, it's still no.
That's actually remarkable that they're the best defense so far. I don't know is that in regards to points per game allowed, yards per game allowed? But hey, Big 12, you're proving us wrong, guys. Joseph, he has this just dying need question. Is there any chance that Michigan can win out and beat Ohio State? Give me a percentage, guys. What percent do you give the Wolverines of winning out? They do play winless Penn State this weekend, so there is a chance there for them to start this winning streak. Actually, no, continue the winning streak because they beat Rutgers this past weekend.
I think Cade McNamara and at quarterback is definitely maybe a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel for them. I think they have a lot of talent. I just don't think they're a very good team, though, if that makes sense. So I'll play ball with you, Blake. I'll play ball, and I'll say that they have a 20% chance to win out, including that game against Ohio State. I'm going 20%. I'll play ball. Will it happen? Absolutely not. Not in a million years. Not in a billion years. But 20%.
Yeah, I'm putting it at
a billion years. Yeah.
I'm putting it at less than 5%. I didn't think it was a very good chance to start the year because they never beat Ohio State to begin with, and I wasn't sold on this Michigan team and how they've played to begin this season. They almost just lost to Rutgers. I don't see it. Ohio State is worse than last year, but not by that much.
Michigan finishes at home against Penn State, not like home or away even matters, and then at home against Maryland, and then obviously on the road at the Horseshoe. Is there any chance Michigan can win out? No. Is there a percentage I'll give them? I'm going to give them 19%, just so it's 1% lower than what Josh said.
What happens if they win out and suddenly I've got the highest percentage?
Well, screw you, Josh. I'm going with a 21% chance then. So
it's going to be 19.5, Josh. The price is right. $1. $1.
Yeah, Michigan. Oh, I'm upset I didn't put any money on that Michigan Penn State game for this weekend, just so I have any reason to watch it. But It's definitely going to be the best game of the year, though, somehow, just like Michigan and Rutgers ended up being this past weekend. Guys, we briefly mentioned at the beginning of the show, well, Bray did it because he called Dabo a moron. Did Dabo have a right to be upset with Florida State backing out this past weekend, considering that Florida State played Pittsburgh earlier this month in a similar situation?
No, he had no right to say what he said. I think it is so outlandish that he said they didn't play us because they don't want this smoke. He didn't actually say that, but he was like, they're scared. And Mike Norvell was like, there's COVID. Like, there's COVID.
You brought it into us. We don't just back up.
Like I understand the whole Trevor Lawrence thing, and I get how the science like kind of makes sense and stuff, but this is the same head coach who wanted to just like rush his players back to play when like they medically were not going to be available. Like I just think the comments that he made were totally they were irresponsible. Let's just say that, because it almost sounded like he was whining the whole time. Just like it's like the same thing. Like BYU didn't not play Washington because they were scared. Like, I disagree with the fact that they did not play them. They didn't do it because they were scared. Like, Florida State's not playing them because they're scared. There's a global pandemic going on. Like, of course, everybody wants to play football. Like, Florida State has no chance at anything this year. Why would they just not play? Like, they want to play. So I think his statements were totally out of left field, and he had no right to say them. They made no sense.
I agree with everything that you just said. And along with that, about Florida, you said, why would Florida State not want to play? Why is he so mad that they missed this game? Like, Clemson's season is in no way impacted by beating Florida State 58-0. Like, it's like you're still ranked third. If you win out, you're going to get to the playoff. What are you so mad about? Like, I don't get it.
Here's this. Pull this up. I totally agree with it. Mike Norvell, who we spent some time with at Arizona State, he said, coaches are not doctors. Some of us might think that we are. And Dabo said, they've had 3 head coaches in 4 years. I'm not going to worry about any advice from Tallahassee. Well, Dabo, you might want to, because your star quarterback had COVID. Another one of your players had COVID. Granted, so did Mike Norvell. But that's a different point.
Bro, we've all had it at some point. Come on.
Honestly.
Sean definitely had it a year ago. I think Ryle can attest to this when Sean was literally violently ill.
Our friend TJ's had it for like 6 years. Like, that dude has been sick for 6 years. He's
all right, guys.
Hang on. I want to say this real quickly. Dabo was completely out of left field, like what Josh and Lyle both said. He's like, no, they're not scared. They want to play, very similar to Washington. But what Dabo said earlier was he was attacking not only the football team, but the school as a whole, because it was the president's decision to officially, pull the game from Florida State. So Clemson had a player on the plane traveling and then test positive the day of, which means who knows who could have been exposed to it. So Dabo, I said it earlier, you've said some things in the past that have just been downright baffling. Like, I'm going to say like Mike Gundy level baffling. It's like, Dabo, get it under control, buddy.
Yeah, come on, Dabo. Come on, man. You're better.
Get it under control.
All right, guys. Your favorite XFL team?
My favorite XFL team you'd think would be the LA Wildcats, but that logo and the name Wildcats for a team in LA is just put it in simple language, stupid. So my favorite team is Team 9. They play out of Arlington. They're the practice squad team, so they're probably my favorite. I don't know, my favorite player is the quarterback, but I believe according to Wikipedia the team name is Team 9. So I like them, the practice squad guys.
It's currently the Seattle Dragons for me. However, I will say I sit here and co-host a podcast. I also like to listen to certain podcasts. And all I'll say is if a certain DC XFL team signs a certain podcast host to be their kicker one day, I will change my fandom. That's all I'll say. I will be a fan of the DC Defenders.
To quote the great Bert Kreischer, 100%. I agree with you, Lyle, on that one. I think they, automatic from 30 in. St. Louis Battlehawks, that just sounds badass. The Battlehawks. So why not? But if we're going to AAF teams, it's got to be the Arizona Hotshots.
Hotshots.
Hotshots all the way, baby.
I like that one. Guys, The problem is we're having so many comments that are coming in right now. I can only scroll back so much. I can't find it on the screen, so I'm just going to read it because I remember what it was. But I know Short Round did ask a question, and it went something along the lines of, you guys are trapped in a grocery store. You're like locked in a grocery store, and you have to eat everything in the store. How long would it take you to eat? Oh, there you go. He was able to find it.
He recommented it.
Oh, he recommented. How long would it take you to eat all the food in the store?
By ourselves or like with like the four of us? Because if it's the four, so
let's make it the four of us because that'll make it a lot easier.
Make it a lot easier.
So Brandon and I are going to do some damage,
dude.
We'll carry the team on our back.
We'll leave all the vegetables for Lyle.
We'll leave all the vegetables, the peanut butter, and all that stuff.
I gotta be honest. If we have access to like a
hang on. I'm sorry. What kind of store? So are we talking like Costco, or are we talking like Trader Joe's, which is much smaller?
No. I say just
it's
like
whatever we want,
like a normal Safeway or a Ralph's or like a Fry's or whatever your local grocery store is that are all different names but all look exactly the same. You know exactly what I'm talking about. That one. So I say the four of us trapped in there. If we have access to a stove or an oven or a microwave that we can cook things, I think we knock it out in, let's say 3 weeks, but we're going to have to tell ourselves that we have to eat every day because that's a lot of food. We're talking about the stock rooms too, guys.
I'm going to say this, like simply enough. Do you know how much pasta is just on the shelf at one time?
Yeah, a lot.
That's a lot. You eat pasta like no other though.
No, Matt eats pasta like no other. That's all Matt eats.
3 weeks. I mean, stores are big. I figured it would be months. Like,
I mean, 3 weeks. Hey, this will take 3 weeks to do an aisle or something.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. And I think Short Round just commented and said, this question is supposed to be phrased where if you're by yourself. If you're by yourself. I feel like, I was going to say, it's like a year and a half.
Yeah, by myself, I'll go a year. But I think it'd be dope if it was the four of us, and then we could all just pick something from an aisle each night, and then we make that, and then just have a big group meal, and we'll do 3 months. 3 months, we'll say.
Everybody gets 2 plates for dinner, though, of course.
Yes, you have to. Every meal, you have to have seconds.
If we're doing,
wouldn't you want it to last, though? You want the food to last.
He said it doesn't spoil.
No, but you want the food to last because you're trapped in there, is what I'm saying.
No, but we can't leave until it's all gone.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's kind of like that's why we gotta keep. That's why we gotta eat it. Everybody has minimum 2 plates at dinner.
It's kind of like the question, like, all right, would you rather go to jail for a year or go to jail until you can solve a Rubik's cube?
Well, I'll be in jail for a year anyway because there's no way. I mean, where did MJ put it? I can't even solve this little 2x2 one. I've been trying this for weeks and I still can't figure it out. It's like the one from Anchorman on Brian Fantana's desk. It's just the 2x2 and I can't get it. So if I can't get a 2x2 and I'm a month in, I'm going to be in jail for at least a year. So hopefully I'm going to try to solve this by the end of the show, by the way. So yeah. I'm saying at least a year, guys. This is going to take us at least a year to put all that down.
What's the first meal we make for dinner? I love this question.
Steak and mashed potatoes.
Oh, all right.
Fine with me.
Yeah, whatever the best thing in there is. All right, guys. That's, as always, Short Round to wrap up the Q&A is always a fun time. But that does bring us to our pick'ems. This was an exciting week, guys. There was some movement in the rankings. And I definitely, I'm looking at this now before we go out to edit this because I definitely had some sort of typo. So let me go and fix that because that is inaccurate. So before we get to those updated scores, so just talk amongst one another while I fix this for about 30 seconds or so.
So back to Short Round's question, obviously.
Yep.
Steak and potatoes for dinner.
Yes.
I like that. But
and Lyle can have a PB&J.
And Lyle can have a PB&J, of course. What are we making for like lunch, breakfast? What's your go-to?
Oh, we got to go turkey sandwiches. Okay. I feel like lunch meat sandwiches. That's a way to go. Breakfast again, like as long as we have access to like an oven, a microwave, stove,
all utensils,
eggs and bacon, all the cereal you can choose from, and then at night put on a movie, make some popcorn, and we've got all the beverage aisles just to the four of us. We will cruise through those.
Hang on, that's a lot of booze as well.
Gosh,
you got a lot of frozen food too.
as Ron Swanson said, I don't think you understood me. Give me all the bacon you have.
Oh boy, that
no
is
stock rooms. So
that
I'm
audio.
gonna craft this question. We're not eating the stock rooms, just everything that's on the shelves.
Yes.
All right.
I always like whenever the audio just starts going absolutely nuts. We're all like having like a spasm, and Lyle's just sitting there chilling, doesn't even hear it at all. So we're all literally dying. All right, guys, I was able to update the standings because I forgot to update Lyle's. It got close this week, guys. It got close. Lyle's lead is slowly shrinking. Lyle's got 96 points. I've got 92. Brady with 90. Josh with 85. Josh, I mean, we still got a few weeks left. So
And I picked Indiana, Josh. Come on.
yeah, and he picked Indiana. So don't count yourself out yet, Josh. But Lyle, his lead is dwindling. It's getting smaller and smaller. We'll see what happens. But guys,
I think I had a decent week too. Like
we all had decent weeks. Brady and I were actually tied, but the Indiana one he got wrong, and then I think the one before that, I think he got wrong as well. So that's when I jumped out to the lead. Yeah, imagine getting through the entire bacon now. That's a lot of cake. I love eating cake.
Yeah, Brady's gonna like make steak or whatever one night, steak and mashed potatoes. He cuts into it. Oh, it's cake.
Everything is just cake, Lyle.
And we'll also remember to leave Blake's steak on the grill for like an extra 30 minutes. So that
Yeah, gotta have it well done. You gotta have it well
Are you
done.
out of your mind?
That
Blake?
is
don't
a
want
slap
to-
in the face to
I don't
every
want a
chef.
speck of red on that steak. If there's any red on that steak, it is going
I
back.
have to eat the bottom of a shoe.
Blake wants it to taste and like texture and taste of a hockey puck.
Also, guys, we're not going to answer this question, but hey, gotta respect it, right? That's a fun one right there. All right, guys, let's get to the pick'ems. We got what? Do you want to
I
answer
love
it?
this show. I love this show.
This is the point of the show. I mean, the reason this is, this isn't water. That's why we're having so much fun here at the Harris Highlight Show.
The answer to the question of who takes the longest showers is Lyle, because I was driving yesterday and I called Lyle and he texted me an hour later like, "Hey, sorry, I was in the shower." It's like,
I don't
beauty
think it was
hour,
an
man.
hour.
It's beauty hour.
Yeah, exactly.
We got the shower, then we got the creams, then we got the shaving. We got it all, man.
we got cream.
Beauty hour.
We're still
There's
sponsored
cream.
by that
I
one
don't know
company that-
about the cream, but
Oh, there's
we were
creams,
still
all
sponsored
right.
by that one company that Ian Rappaport was also sponsored by. Then we'd have a sponsored segment called "Who Takes the Longest Shower."
All right, guys, it's time now to get to the pick'ems. Let's start things off. Iowa State at Texas.
You know what? I think Breece Hall runs all over the Longhorns this week. I'm taking Iowa State in a close one.
yeah, I mean Texas has improved too since early on in the year, but I just think Iowa State finds a way to get it done. Breece Hall's been so good. I think Brock Purdy has a good game, so Iowa State.
Didn't Josh say a few weeks ago if there's a quarterback you need to march downfield and get you a win, it's going to be Sam Ehlinger? Didn't you say that?
Yeah, but then I corrected myself to Keaton Slovis.
Okay. All right. Well, for your correction, then I'm going to go with Iowa State as well.
Yeah. Wait. Come on, guys. I need
Hey,
to come
sorry,
back
dog.
here.
I got Iowa State money line on this.
And you know
one,
what?
so
You know what? For
gotta
just
go
for
with
Josh,
Cyclones.
just for Josh, let's have Lyle go first this week.
Okay.
Yeah,
Josh was complaining about
There he
last
goes.
week.
He's put
He had
it
to go. Josh always has to go first. We should mix up who goes first.
So where am I going now? My second.
You're going last.
You're
dog.
going last. It's leaderboard.
All right.
Wow.
Well, if it's
Nice.
leaderboard, then there we go right there. All
Leaderboard.
right.
Go leaderboard.
This is fun playing with you guys. All right. Stanford at Cal.
Oh.
Oh.
Okay. I'm gonna take Stanford on the road.
All right. I'm going to go with Cal at home. I think they get their first win of the season here.
I'm going Stanford on the road as well.
Stanford showed glimpses of promise even in 2 losses, and Cal is just awful. So I've got Stanford in the big game.
All right. We got Maryland at Indiana.
We're doing that one last. All right, whatever.
Oh, wait. Sorry. Forgot about that. Why don't we
America's
just
team, our
Why
team.
don't we just slide that all the way down there since ASU got canceled, and we'll go to Penn State at Michigan.
I know I just said some negative things about Michigan, but I mean Penn State has just looked pretty lost all year. At least Michigan put up a fight. I know it was against Rutgers, but they scored some points. I think they'll score some points again this week, so I'm taking Michigan.
Penn State is due. I say this every week. They're due. So I'm going to go with the Nittany Lions in this one to pick up their first win of the season.
I think Penn State's due as well, but I think it's not going to come this week. Surprisingly, I'm going to go with Michigan over Penn State. Penn State's going to fall to 22 this season?
About.
Yeah, give or take.
Cade McNamara looked pretty good this past week for Michigan, and Jimmy Harbaugh, as what was once said in an exquisite show known as Phineas and Ferb, is, dude, we're getting the band back together, and that's what Harbaugh's doing this week. I'll take Michigan.
All right, guys, probably the best action we're getting, and this is a fun one. Unfortunately, it's Sunday morning at 9 a.m. This can't be a Tuesday or Wednesday night game, but if you're able to somehow tune into this for a few minutes, there's going to be points like no other. It's going to be a high-scoring affair. Both teams are undefeated. Josh talked about our man Jared Patterson earlier in the show. Kent State at Buffalo.
Yeah, Patterson had a big game this past week. I think he repeats this week. I'm taking Buffalo.
Yeah, Buffalo, 7-point favorites. I think he's going to keep this going. He's coming for that Heisman. We're not talking about him. He's going to be coming. If he keeps having 300-yard games, he's coming. So is Buffalo.
I'm going Buffalo as well. I think the Bulls get it done.
Yeah, hard to not pick our guy JP in this one. So I've got Patterson and Buffalo.
Is Khalil Mack's brother still at Buffalo? I think I asked this last week.
One of them is. There's like 5 of them. It's just every year there's some sort of Mac there. Colorado at USC. For now.
Yeah.
I know USC had a couple close games their first 2 weeks, and then they looked better this past week against Utah. I think they'll continue it against Colorado. I've got the Trojans.
If I've learned anything from being a USC fan since my early days, is that when USC is a double-digit favorite, things are going to go wrong. I'm taking USC, but in Vegas today, I did take Colorado plus 13 because I think giving SC 2 touchdowns against an undefeated Colorado team is a bit generous. So for those of you that want to make some money, I like Colorado plus 13. But again, with Keaton Slovis at the helm, if they're down late, he's going to lead them back. I like USC to win a fairly close one. I think that could be a fun mid-afternoon Pac-12 game.
Yeah, I like USC in this one as well. We saw them week 1 against ASU. They looked okay. Keaton Slovis had a great late game comeback, and they've just gotten better every week since then. So I'm going to go with the Trojans at home.
SC has gotten better each week. They were extremely undisciplined against U of A, and they were very disciplined against Utah. And the defense was, quite frankly, they were unbelievable. They didn't allow a single third down conversion in the second half, didn't allow a point in the second half, and only gave up 1 defensive touchdown. I think SC looks good. They don't have to board a plane for the rest of the season because their only away game left is at the Rose Bowl against UCLA. I think
they
SC
could fly.
They could.
Yeah, man. Fly from LAX to Burbank.
Yeah, that would be it would be counterproductive, but that's okay. I think SC takes care of business at the Coliseum on Saturday.
All right, guys, I just talked about a fun action game, a great Mountain West game, the undefeated San Jose Spartans at Boise State.
San Jose State. State.
It's not a state.
There you go. It's not a state. Either is Boise.
Boise.
If you had to live in either Boise or San Jose, where would you live?
Boise, I think.
I've never been to Boise. So I'll say San Jose just because it's kind of closer to a lot more that's going on, but I feel like Boise would be cool.
I haven't been to either, so I couldn't give you an answer.
I haven't been to either. I don't plan on it, but if I had to, my life depended on it. San Jose, because at least I'm still in the greatest state ever created, is California.
You're also in San Jose, but that's fine.
That's true.
Go ahead, Lyle.
I'm taking Boise State. I think they're the better team. I know San Jose has had a good year this year, but I just like Bachmeier and Shakir to have another big game.
I'm taking Boise State to win, but another bet I did today was San Jose State plus the 11 points. They can keep this one close, but I think the Broncos at home, they'll plow out on the Smurf turf.
You know, I think it's such a shame that we don't hear anything about Hank Bachmeier this year. I know he got injured, I believe, towards the end of last year as well. So he was such a
great Sears season now.
Yeah.
Well, he played this past week, Bachmeier.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
He was such a great quarterback last year as a freshman. There was some hype around him like, oh, who's the best freshman quarterback? He was always in consideration and contention and conversation. Those are great C words right there. I'm going to go Boise State.
It's you, Blake. Oh, no, you're
you,
second
Josh.
now. I'm sorry. I've never been last before. I don't know what I'm doing.
You've hosted the show before.
That's true, but oh yeah. Well, I'm not hosting this time, which is weird.
That's true.
It's fine. Look, like Boise kind of had a late scare last game against Hawaii. Came down to like one play that they reviewed for 6 minutes. Shout out to our friend Seb, who's from Boise, who moved to Georgia and is now 3 hours ahead of us. And Hawaii is 3 hours behind. So he was watching this game kick off at like 1 a.m. or something crazy. So shout out to our guy Sebastian. I think Boise handles business this week against San Jose State. Good game, but I think the Broncos pull away at the end.
The Fighting Todd Grahams.
The Fighting Todd Grahams of Hawaii put up a fight.
Yeah.
All right, guys. The Egg Bowl this week, Mississippi State at Ole Miss.
Both these last pick'ems have featured my last 2 stars of the week. I picked Boise State to get a win, and Elijah Moore will not lose the Egg Bowl for Ole Miss this year. I'm taking Ole Miss.
This Mississippi State team is so weird. At the beginning of the season, we thought they could be a potential threat in the SEC. They've been awful ever since, and now they're starting to look kind of decent. So we need something to make this interesting. I'm going to pick Mississippi State with the upset in this one. I think they can pull it off. They've been playing well. They were close against Georgia this past weekend, and Ole Miss, they should be better than what they are, but for whatever reason, they're not.
You know how in the NCAA video games there's mascot mode? You can just play like 11 on 11 with the mascots. Well, I wish there were head coach mode because this game would be the most played game there is. Lane Kiffin, Mike Leach going at it. I love this matchup. This was hyped up when they both got hired. Too bad they're both totally underwhelming teams this year. I'm going to go with Ole Miss in this game in the Egg Bowl and an early one of these this week because why, Lyle?
I'm going to say because why not? And I was thinking about this last week. For people that don't know why we do this every week, there was a random time last year where I asked Brady, because I started to notice Brady would like be sitting in the studio back when we did it in the studio, and he'd just be the third picker. 2 of us would have the same team. Let's say it's, I don't know, Boise State. He'd be like, yeah, I'm taking Boise State because why not? And I asked him one day, are you like half asleep in there or what? Because like sometimes it seems like you're just half asleep making these pick'ems.
It's just
that's how it started. That's how it started, that you started saying, why, Lyle? Because why not? And to this day, for like over a year, we still do it.
It was just so weird sitting, in a studio away from you guys because all 3 of you were in the other studio, and I had like a big pane of double glass, and it was just always quiet in my studio. I could only hear you guys in the headphones. It was just a nice, relaxing time.
Lonely,
Bro, I miss that studio, man.
Hang on here. I'll stand on my
studio,
chair and dance here like Josh used to do. And
yeah, just don't get us kicked out of the radio.
Yeah, then we got
station
suspended
again.
for a few months. Yay. Yeah, who's picking? Is Josh picking now? I don't even remember.
My turn.
Or did Brady even pick?
Yeah,
I
dude.
picked Ole Miss.
Okay.
We all talked about our SEC predictions earlier this year, and we kind of said that like it's going to take a year or two before Lane and Mike Leach kind of get these teams going. But look, this is the matchup I kind of thought we were going to get, but I'm totally on the Lane train for this game. I think Matt Corral has a really big day against the Bulldogs, so I've got Ole Miss.
I guess people in the comments are still talking about living in Idaho or something because there's people talking about there being snowboarding
in Mississippi. I've
heard, to eat potatoes, so there's something to do. And
you can eat potatoes anywhere.
So like, is this an actual thing? Are people still talking?
They just send them everywhere.
Are people still talking about the whole thing about living in Boise, Idaho in the comments? Fun fact, Boise drops a potato for New Year's Day instead of something like the New York City ball drop.
There's no way that's real, right?
I wouldn't
think.
I wouldn't be shocked. I guess people are still going at it in the comments, which, hey, good for everyone. Guys,
oh my God, it's a real thing.
LSU at Texas A&M.
I'm not going first. Never mind.
Yeah, I'm going first. I'm taking Texas A&M. It's pretty disappointing how underwhelming LSU's been this year. Now Texas A&M, I know they're 5th. I don't personally see them getting in, but they're going to be fighting for one of those 4 spots, and this is a game they obviously have to win. Kellen Mond goes off, A&M wins.
Yeah, who would have thought? I mean, last year I think LSU beat A&M by 20, 30, 40, something like that. I think they just dismantled them. 2 years ago was that epic 7-8 overtime game, which is the reason now overtime sucks in college football. We're after 5 overtimes. You got to cap it. Josh, what am I looking for right here?
Sam commented.
I just found a video of it. I'm going to get it pulled up and drop it in if I can.
Seb says it's true. Our friend from Boise says that the potato drop is true.
So how have we never heard about this? Why do we not know that there's a potato that drops?
Is it like the same thing like they do on like the ball in Times Square where it goes down the pole? Or like do they just go to the top of a parking structure and just
But also, is it like a real like singular potato that's like the size of my fist? Or is it like a big, just massive fake potato?
It's a big, massive fake potato. I'm getting a video recorded right now. I'm going to drop it in the show for a second.
They should literally just drop a bucket of them off a parking structure and tell everyone just watch out below, and that's how you ring in the new year.
All right, guys. Well, Brady gets this up and loaded. Let's do another pick 'em, then he can get it up. Kansas State at Baylor.
I didn't pick A&M.
Oh,
I think Lyle was the only person who picked A&M.
oh, we're all picking A&M.
Yeah.
That's true. Oh, dude. So our friend Emma has a custom Joe Burrow jersey with Burrow spelled EAUX, an LSU jersey. The first day she wore it, Burrow got hurt and is out for the season. So prayers up for Joe Burrow. But for that reason alone, I'm taking A&M.
For that reason, I'm out.
Yeah, I'm out.
All right,
Sorry,
guys. Kansas State at Baylor.
I'm taking Baylor at home. I like the Bears.
It's weird. The Baylor has one win on the season, but yet they're like 5-point favorites over Kansas State. I know Skylar Thompson's out. They might be on their second or third string quarterback. I think I have a bet somewhere in my 10 slips I made that has Kansas State plus the 5. So I'm going to go with Kansas State to get the win in this one.
Brady, it's your turn.
I got Baylor at home on this one. I like what Charlie Brewer's doing at quarterback still.
So the NHL came out with reverse retro jerseys, and the LA Kings jerseys are purple. They went back to their throwbacks. They look fantastic. So I'm sticking with the purple, and I'm going Kansas State.
All right, Brady, you got the video of this potato dropping?
I'm getting it right now. I'll be ready by the next pick.
All right, guys. Well, while we wait for that one, Oklahoma at West Virginia.
I like Oklahoma. Again, they're the best team in a bad conference, but they're playing a team in their conference in West Virginia. So I'm going to take the Sooners.
I'm pretty certain West Virginia still is the best defense in the Big 12. It'll be interesting to see what they do against Oklahoma. But I'm going to go with the Sooners in this one to win the game.
Yeah, I'm going to go Oklahoma on this one. I think West Virginia's got a decent squad, but I think Rattler, quote unquote, figures it out for this game. We'll have a semi-consistent game. And so I'm going to go Oklahoma.
Yeah, I'll take OU just for the reason that they're hot. And again, like Oklahoma State's been underwhelming and kind of inconsistent, but I don't know if those 3 wins over, Kansas and Texas Tech and TCU really, are the difference makers for OU this season. But I think they'll take down West Virginia this week on the road.
All right, Brady, we got this potato ready for us.
It's airdropping to my computer right now because I had to record it from my phone.
All right, well, we got the Iron Bowl this weekend, guys. As Alabama's a nice, cool 24.5-point favorite. Bo Nix, show us what you can do as a 24-point underdog in the Iron Bowl at Alabama.
I'm taking Bama, and I like the over. Like, Bama's just going to kill him.
Lyle, I like that you say you like the over because I have a bet with the over in this Alabama-Auburn game. It's a matter of Bama's winning. It's a matter of do they cover the spread. I wouldn't be shocked if Auburn gets a last-second touchdown to pull within, but Bama's going to be winning this game by 20 to 30 for majority, so roll Tide.
Can you repeat the spread and the over again?
The spread is Bama 24.5, and I believe the over is currently 62 or 63, I want to say. And I wouldn't be shocked if Alabama scores those 63 points themselves.
Yeah, they cover too, I should say, Bama.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Bama, and it's not even close. I'll save the potato video for the end of the show.
All right. So, yeah.
We don't intrude.
I just saw a little tease of it in the group chat. It's a big potato.
Dude, it's incredible.
I think Auburn keeps it close for the first half, but I think that Alabama was just a lot better than them. And we saw it from Bo Nix last year in kind of a weird game, and they ended up beating Alabama at the end. And I just don't see it this year. I think Mac Jones is hot. I think Alabama's hot, and I don't think Bo Nix has it this year.
All right, guys, we got a few games left. Pittsburgh at Clemson.
I got Clemson. I think this one's pretty easy. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is going to come back. Clemson wins.
Yeah, Clemson wins. Pittsburgh is always one of those teams that kind of hangs around with these good teams. A few years ago, Pittsburgh pulled off the upset in this one. Spread's 24. I wouldn't be shocked if Pitt can hang around and keep within the 24. But Clemson, they're coming for blood. They haven't played in a few weeks. The last time we saw them, they lost to Notre Dame. I think they want to prove that they're one of the best teams in the country, which is why I took the over in this game, a nice low 54 points, which, again, Clemson can score on their own. Not even talking about how many points Pittsburgh's going to score, but I like Clemson.
This is another one of those Clemson, and it's not even close type games. So I'm going to go with Clemson, and it's not even close.
So I didn't check the spread before this, so I'm glad you said it, Blake, at 24. I have written down in my notes Clemson by 21. I think this is one of those games that we kind of saw from a few different teams in the ACC this season where, like, it looks like they're going to put up a fight, but in the end they don't. But for a while, it seems like they're going to hang around a little, and then in the end, it's just ultimately not that close. So I'll say Tigers by 21 at home.
All right, guys, probably the best game of this weekend, Notre Dame at North Carolina. Notre Dame's a 4-point favorite, so Vegas thinks that North Carolina is going to keep this game close. So, Lyle, as our Notre Dame expert, who I was seeking your opinion on before I made my bet today, what do you have to say about Notre Dame in this game?
I think they win. Like I said to you guys earlier, I think this game stays close. North Carolina is still 6-2. And they have an abundance of weapons on offense. Having said that, at the same time, they don't really have any impressive wins as a whole this year. I mean, most of their wins have been against kind of middling teams or teams a game or two over 100. They haven't had to play that lethal Notre Dame, Clemson, Miami type team yet. So this is going to be a real test. I think their offense hangs them or keeps them in the game basically the whole way. And I think Notre Dame pulls it out.
Yeah, I got Notre Dame money line on this one because I was too scared with the 4, but I think they pulled out. But this will be a fun one. They're expecting a high score and affair. I think the over-under is 68 points or 67 points in this game, so they're expecting a lot of points. Sam Howell's going to put up some good numbers, but as Lyle said perfectly, North Carolina's played no one this year. I mean, they haven't played anyone. This is going to be their first test, and I wouldn't be shocked if Notre Dame actually wins by like 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think Notre Dame's obviously the much better team in this game. I don't want to jinx anything because we've seen Notre Dame play to the level of their competition. North Carolina's a good ACC team, but they're not up to the tier of the other guys in the big guys in the conference. I'm going to go with Notre Dame, but I think it's going to be closer than most people think.
Notre Dame's defense has been really impressive, in my opinion, this year. There were 2 games where they definitely had a little bit of a hiccup, and we saw it a little bit when they faced Phil Dracovic. Obviously, Notre Dame was the far better team in that game, and they pulled it out. And then against a backup quarterback in DJ Uiagalelei, and I continue to reject the narrative that if Trevor Lawrence played that game, Clemson would have won because DJ threw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. To put it simply, I think that's bull. I think that's a bad argument that they would have won that game if Trevor Lawrence played because Notre Dame deserved to win. I'm going to add on to this and say that I think North Carolina's offense is pretty unreal despite the fact that they don't have a lot of wins. And I think Sam Howell's really good. I think Notre Dame scores a ton of points in this game because I don't think North Carolina can stop them. But I'm going to go with the Tar Heels in the upset, guys. I got to make a little bit of a comeback here, and I think that a full strength North Carolina offense can put up a lot of points on this Notre Dame team that has bent a few times without breaking. And I think it gives way this week. I like the Heels in the upset.
It wouldn't be shocking. This is just one of those ones where it seems like a sneaky one. A lot of people think North Carolina has what it takes to pull off the upset. All right, guys, worst of the worst. Someone needs to get their first win of the season. If you want something to watch on Thanksgiving, boy, do I have the game for you. New Mexico at Utah State. Again, someone has to win their first game of the season.
Oh, I'm going first. I keep forgetting. Man, back to the question earlier with San Jose State, Boise State, where would you rather live? New Mexico or Utah? Hey, Utah. I'll go with Utah State.
Albuquerque or Logan?
That's true.
Does that change the
Nah, I'll stick with Utah.
Utah looks low-key nice. I mean, it looks like a fun place to be. They got a lot of Mormons there, so that would take some getting used to.
Guys, like a city.
Guys, this past weekend, Emmett and I, we went and got Blaze Pizza, which, again, I still can't believe I had to pay for Blaze Pizza. That should be... The guy asked me when I got there, he's like, have you been here before? And I'm like, buddy, have I been here before? And we're walking back.
Run this joint.
I used to run that place. We're walking back, and these 2 girl missionaries, they come up to MJ and I, and they're like, hey, so you guys are having Blaze Pizza. I already knew what they were trying to do. And they're like, oh, so Blaze Pizza, yeah. And we kind of had a little conversation. And we're like, all right, have a good night. And then they pull the, so do you guys have a minute of your time? And I turn back and I say, my best friend's Mormon. Love you guys. Have a good night. And I was on my way. And I don't think I'd be able to put up with that on a day-to-day basis. So I love Utah. It looks beautiful there. I'd love to visit. But because of that reason, sorry, Mormons. Love you guys. The guys need to cool it some of the times, though. I'm going to go with – actually, wait. They probably don't have missionaries in Utah because they're all
No,
Mormons.
they'll send them
Yeah,
out.
they send them to different places. But Breaking Bad was filmed at Albuquerque. But the Dodgers don't have their AAA affiliate, the Isotopes, there anymore. Oh,
Well, the
boy.
Isotopes are still there.
Either one of these
Utah
sounds
Dodgers.
awful, guys. I'm refusing to live in either place, but I'm going to pick Utah State for the win.
I'm going New Mexico State because Blake took all my time.
So,
There you
did
go.
anybody watch the New Mexico Air Force game this past week?
Josh, of course we did.
Okay, so I'll be totally honest with you guys. I watched the entire game. I watched the whole game. And when I saw this show up this week, dude, do not ask me why. Don't ask me why. But I watched the whole game. It was 3 hours that I will not get back. It was the worst football game I've watched since that TCU Cal Cheez-It Bowl 2 years ago. And when I saw Danny Gonzalez, former ASU defensive coordinator in New Mexico, show up on our worst of the worst, I thought, oh, this is easy. I'm taking New Mexico State or New Mexico. But then I remembered that I watched them turn the ball over on like 4 of 5 straight offensive plays against Air Force and get shut out on the road. And every time they cut to the sideline, Danny Gonzalez was just like he didn't even know what to say at that point. And there's just no way I can pick New Mexico after watching that whole game. Plus, Utah State won this game last game of the season last year. So
That's what
I've got
Jordan
the
loved.
Ags. I've got the Ags.
All right, so to recap everybody's picks from this one, because we've had so much time. Lyle, who'd you have?
Utah State.
So everybody, all right, cool.
I plead the fifth on this game. All right, guys. Unfortunately, ASU's already been canceled. So at this point, we're going to go with our new team, Indiana. All right, guys. Maryland at Indiana. This is going to be a fun one. They're expecting a lot of points. The spread has been all over the place. It was at 14. Now it's down to 11, I think. But, guys, Maryland, Indiana, what do we like?
Both quarterbacks go off. Indiana wins by 10.
Oh, that's right. I'm going. I want to see a lot of points. I want to see a high-scoring affair. I'm going to go with Indiana. I think they can ride this momentum out, pick up a victory, and get them back on the right track towards their quest towards a playoff push.
Yeah, I'm going to go Indiana. I don't think they have a playoff push unless, Ohio State loses out the rest of the way. But, hey, who knows? We'll see. I'm going to go with Indiana in a very, very, very obvious choice. Because why, Lyle? Because I can. And I just did.
Hey, short round got it for you because why not?
Well, there you go.
70-66 because why not?
I love it.
This is, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I came into this thinking I might pick Maryland. I'm not going to. I think Indiana proved that they're a pretty good team last week, and a lot of people thought they were going to get blown out, and they didn't, and they played very well against Ohio State, minus the -5 rushing yards or whatever it ended up being. I think Indiana wins. I think they win in a very close game. This comes down to like the final 5 minutes of the fourth quarter for me, but I think IU pulls it out. Plus, Tom Allen is going to call timeout, bring everybody together, give a fiery pep talk at the end of the game, and even Maryland's going to be like, oh, dude, we're just going to let them win now. And that's how Indiana pulls out the win.
All right, well, that wraps up this week's edition of our Pick'ems, but not our show, because before we head out for the week, Brady, he's got a potato video for us. Everyone in the comments is dying to see it. So without further ado, let's watch the New Year's Eve dropping of the potato. I don't know if there's a name for it. Wow, I am inspired.
Like an actual thing. And this is incredible.
I
will say this.
Crispy crinkle cut fries.
Dude, in Indiana, they did one that was a race car. Like they dropped an Indy car.
Like an actual Indy car?
Yeah, like they didn't.
Did they drop it slowly, or did they just cut the cake?
No, it's like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Just cut, and it goes.
See, when it was dropping, Brady, can you replay the video really quickly? Because as it was dropping, there was that sign in the background that says something about crispy fries or something. I thought the second, right here, super crispy crinkle cut fries. I thought when it went there, it was just going to shoot out crinkle cut fries, like how the fireworks come off right now. I thought they were just going to explode out with the French fries right there. That would have been even better.
That would have been awesome.
Wow, incredible.
I like all these comments that are just talking about the potatoes. But unfortunately, that does wrap up this edition of the Harris Highlight Show. It was a fun one. Thanks to everyone who tuned in Again, every week, Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern. I don't know if the playoff rankings are going to stay at 7 p.m. Eastern. I kind of hope they do because it's prime for us. But if they move to 5 p.m., we'll probably be pushing the show back half an hour to 5:30. If you guys want to stay up to date with the latest show, follow us on Twitter at the HHShow_, where we're going to post updates in regards to the show when we're doing our shows and all that kind of fun stuff where you can vote on, the polls for Lyle. That's $1 million idea, Fry Fireworks.
Yeah,
and that's a dream come true right there. So make sure to follow us on Twitter at the HHShow_. You guys can also follow us on Instagram at Harris Highlights Show. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. If you ever miss an episode, you can find all of our shows over there. You guys can support the show and in a future episode, ask us a question by donating to the Super Chat. Or you guys can become Patreon members for as little as $1 a month. You guys can get a group Skype with us where we talk with all of our other Patreon members, talk about college football, pretty much talk crap to one another. It's a whole lot of fun. You also get access to this group message on Twitter. So again, if you have any interest on some behind the scenes content, getting to know us, getting to hang with us, anything like that, again, as little as $1 a month. All that information is in the description of this video below. Guys, any parting words before we head out for another week?
We get ASU basketball tomorrow, boys. Let's go.
ASU basketball will play more times this week than ASU football has all season, and that is sad.
That's true. They will.
Also, Toby says, love the beards, boys. But I think, yeah, thanks, man. But boys,
yeah,
I don't really know what
slowly but surely
trimmed it.
All right. So as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. We'll be back here next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Brady's confused.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Tomorrow or Thursday's Thanksgiving.
I don't know what time. I don't even know what day it is anymore. But yes,
Tuesday. We do our show on Tuesdays, Blake.
Oh, guys, this is going to be something interesting. So before we go, so pretty much essentially my Thanksgiving this weekend got canceled because Matt's family's going out to my aunt's mom's place. So we're not going out there. So instead, me, Mark, and Stacy are going to host Thanksgiving at our place with MJ and her mom invited. And this will be the first time MJ's mom and my parents will meet. And we've been dating for almost 3 years.
And live together.
And speaking of the girlfriend, here she is.
I have the power to end the show too, Blake.
So that's a perfect cue. She has a lot of stuff I think I need to help. So, guys, when we finish this Rubik's Cube, I'm going to go help her bring all the stuff.
And then go help her. Yeah,
and then go help her. Josh Schaefer,
and then go help.
Lyle Goldstein, Brady Klein. This has been Blake Harris. Thank you guys so much for watching. Follow us on Twitter. Thanks for watching the show. It's been a fun one. We're going to see you guys right back here again next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern live here on YouTube.